I like that. If you're going to go, just go. Hopefully that is not the way it goes for the Eagles in free agency. If you go, just go. Because we got a lot of good players here, Hugh, that are about to hit free agency, including 4 big ones. And really, it's interesting because as we've had our discussions over the last few weeks about Eagles free agency, it feels like there's 2 groups, right? There's people are saying, all right, we'll debate between Mekhi Becton and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat and those guys. But a different group, all by himself, is Zack Baun. That has become the one player that I would say, I don't think we've spoken to one person here that doesn't want him back or doesn't think it should be the priority to bring Zack Baun back. That has been the consensus, I think, probably from the Eagles, but certainly our listeners and everyone we talk to every day. Baun is one, and then everybody else. But it kind of brings you to the idea of, well, what if Baun doesn't come back? I mean, Zack Baun is a free agent. You know, Jeff McClain reported that his market could go $15+ million. The Eagles have never paid that much for a linebacker. They don't typically do that. And we know how this works. You get to the open market, and if his market is $15 million, there could be a team 13 days from now that says, you know what? We got cap room. I'll give you $20 million a year. And the Eagles might say, oh, boy, we got to walk away. And look, I want him back. I think the Eagles, I think there's a real chance they're going to bring him back. And I'm going to frame it this way. I think they need to bring him back to survive next season as a championship contender. If they don't have Zack Baun on this defense next year, I think they're going to take a major step back. Like, I know they have Vic Fangio, and they have Jalen Carter, and they have a really young, dynamic secondary, and they've got some good edge rushers I'm excited about, including Nolan Smith. But I look at Zack Baun as he changed this defense. You saw it week 1 against the Green Bay Packers, and it never stopped. I remember halfway through the season, we were like, I think the conversation is wrong on Zack Baun. It's not just Pro Bowl. He's playing like an all-pro player. They found someone here that could be a linchpin in this defense for years to come. And I need him back. I think they need him back. And I think in order to survive as a Super Bowl contender and one of the top defenses in the NFL, it's non-negotiable. They got to bring Zack Baun back. Hugh, where do you stand on Baun? As it's going to be expensive. They rarely pay this position. Can they survive without him?
You know what? Allow me to long talk a little bit because I want to be clear and concise in what I'm about to say. And a lot of times, you know, Joe, I'm a real stickler on people hearing what I'm trying to say, but they really don't. But I'm going to try again anyway today.
You're going to use bullet points?
I'm going to use bullet points. And I'm going to start out with Batman. You know, Batman is probably considered the greatest detective. Why are you looking at me like, what is the hell he's talking about? I'm going to wrap it up for you. I promise you.
No, actually, I'm intrigued by this.
Batman is considered one of the greatest detectives on the planet, right? And he's a part of the Justice League. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading a story where with the Justice League, Batman had these protocols where just in case, it wasn't in case, but it was just in case the Super Friends went rogue. Mm-hmm. He had contingency plans.
Right, okay, yeah.
This is the same thing that and the way that I feel about this Philadelphia Eagles regime. Zack Baun came in and he played extremely well. I would love to have Zack Baun be here because he instilled in us something that we haven't seen in a long time. Great linebacker play. And just a hard-nosed, gritty Philadelphia guy. He's probably was one of the reasons why, he's definitely one of the reasons why people feel the way that they feel about this defense. Now, a hell of a player.
Yep.
But the one thing that I do know to be true when it comes to free agency, you get overpaid in free agency. And the Eagles allowed this man to get to this point. That's not saying that they didn't want him. That's saying that they probably, Howie said something to the effect that this year he didn't want to sign anybody during the season because he didn't just want to disrupt the chemistry in the locker room because they were playing so well. But here's the reality of the situation we're in. Zack Baun is a free agent. In free agency, you're going to be overcompensated for the way that you play. Now, granted, it was only in a small sampling size, but he played well enough that I can almost guarantee you that he might go out in free agency and get a ton of money because teams are going to try to woo him away from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
The Philadelphia Eagles probably have in their mind where they want to pay him and how they want to pay him, and it might not line up because he's probably going to get overpaid. I'm long talking to say all this. I would love to have Zack Baun back, but if he does not come back, I am okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not. I think the Eagles need to make this happen. 215-592-9494. I do like the Batman comp. Batman's my guy. When you start with that, you got my attention. So that guy, it did catch my attention.
That's not a great analogy.
Well, that's okay. Batman comps catch my attention.
Analogy.
Here, I'm going to use straight facts on this one. First-team All-Pro linebacker. He was the best linebacker in the NFL last year on the best defense in the NFL. And, I know yesterday I was talking a lot about age, and Zack Baun isn't the youngest, right? I was saying I'm not trading all that for Myles Garrett. He's getting on the older side. But one thing about Baun that gives me some hope here that he's got a lot of tread left in the tires is he didn't play much with the Saints, right? His snap counts were really low. He was basically a special team or part-time player. I think the Eagles may have not just found a diamond in the rough. They may have found a building block for years to come. Eric Mangini was on Fox Sports 1 a couple weeks ago talking about Baun. And, Mangini had an interesting career, Jets and Browns as a coach. But before that, he was with Bill Belichick for a lot of that time, and especially early in that Patriots run as a dynasty. Listen to the comp he put on Zack Baun. And when I heard this, I was like, what if the Eagles didn't just find a one-year wonder? What if they found a linchpin to years of excellent defense? Here was Mangini on Baun.
To me, he's similar to like when we got Mike Vrabel. So we got Mike Vrabel from the Steelers.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is Vrabel was a core special teams player that we thought could give us some help at linebacker, then came in, played so well at linebacker, everything changed. And it's the same thing for Zach. They brought him in. I don't think anybody expected him to play at the level he played at.
He was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year.
I know, including the Eagles. So now you've got the situation where he's due a payday. And if they can get him back, I think that's the best way to go, and he could be a part of this defense for a long time.
The long time is what catches my attention there. It's one, because it's teams. The best teams in sports, you find a way to like resurrect careers, 1-year thing, and then they do it again, right? Like the Dodgers do this with pitchers. They bring a guy in, he's kind of stunk, they fix him, and then they let someone else go pay him. That could happen here, but sometimes you got to pick the one or two that you say, no, I want to keep this one, and. I need Baun the priority, and I look at next year. Let's fast forward, because it's not just about like Baun and how good he was and how much was Fangio. Next year, we're trying to repeat, trying to do it again. And we already know Kobe Dean's coming off a major injury. I have no idea when he's going to be on the field. So if Baun left, week one linebackers, so I'm talking about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and...
what's his name?
Oren Burks?
Yeah. Dude, see, this is where... I try to educate y'all and try to sprinkle this knowledge on y'all.
Here we go.
But y'all don't want to hear what I'm saying. And Kyle, I can tell right now, Kyle won't even look at me. Kyle already got an attitude. But I'm going to try to explain it to you in a way, Kyle, where you can understand what I'm saying. I can already tell. It's like talking to a wall.
It's going to be one of those days again.
It was the two things that Zack Baun has benefited from tremendously. Not taking anything away from what he did. Listen to what I'm saying. Is opportunity and personnel. Those are the two things that he's benefited from. Opportunity because he was given opportunity to play here. He wasn't the guy. We got to remember Devin White was the guy. For whatever reason, Devin White couldn't get on the field.
And Baun took the job and ran with it.
And Baun took the job and ran with it, which he took advantage of his opportunity. Now, let's get to personnel. You got Jordan Davis and you got Jalen Carter in front of you playing. And we talked about how all year that this defense didn't have to do a whole lot of blitzing because you had that front up front. So all he had to do back there is play coverage. Not saying that he didn't play well coverage, but he did. Now, with those two things involved, it allowed him to show the talent that he didn't get a chance to showcase in New Orleans, and he put himself in position to have a tremendous payday. Now, this is where it becomes a little clouded. I would love, and again, let me keep saying this, I would love to have him here. But how much is that going to cost when you, down the road, have to pay Jalen Carter? You're probably going to have to pay Nolan Smith. This is about money. See, I know that for a lot of people, this is about the desire to field a Super Bowl winning team. And I get that, and I'm with you on that. But the problem with that is this. You're going to have a lot of guys that want to get paid. You're not going to be able to pay everybody.
I get that. But I think you could prioritize somebody. And I'm willing to...
you know who I want to prioritize right now?
Who's that?
Jalen Carter. Like, I know he's not eligible.
A year from now, yeah.
But in the next couple of years, I got to pay that man.
But
he's going to get a gripper ton.
I know. Sometimes you have to, though, to keep who you want, you got to overpay a little bit. I mean, sometimes you do, and I'm willing to overpay Zack Baun. And Hugh, you make a fair point that did he benefit from having Fangio and those big guys in front of him? Yes, but now I can't use the Fangio point, but I can say a year ago, they tried to do this roulette thing at linebacker, right? Think about the linebackers we had a year ago, Zach Cunningham and Morrow and whatever else garbage ran through here. Who was the guy that
we got PTSD from the linebacker spot?
Who was the guy that was half cooked or full cooked? He came in here. We were all excited for a day. Leonard?
No,
Shaq?
high flyer.
No, it was Darius Leonard. Wasn't it?
But high flyer. He called himself the high flyer. Yeah, high flyer. Yeah.
He also got to play behind Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, and he couldn't play.
No, he was cooked though.
Yeah, I know. But like when you go,
that don't count.
Well, it counts.
It don't count.
When you play roulette, sometimes it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out.
That defense.
I can't lose this guy. I can't lose him. All right.
That was Sean Desai.
Well, that didn't work.
That was a terrible defense.
Here's another thing to consider. If we lose Zack Baun, and I hope we don't, but if we lose Zack Baun, they could go the free agency route, like we're talking about, like the one-year guys who try to find a new Zack Baun. That's possible. Or they could dip into the draft again. But listen to this. Howie Roseman, just a couple days ago at the NFL Combine, he sat down with Florio and Sims talking about the draft and his run doing drafts as a GM. And listen to what he said. They asked him, what's your kryptonite? Like, what's the position that you struggle with the most drafting? Listen to what Howie said.
Yeah, I'd say that our fans would probably say that that's the inside linebacker position.
We've had a few of those today. Andy Reid said it to us.
Yeah, well,
linebacker was probably
I came into the league under Coach Reid, and I worked for him for 14 years. So maybe it's the only thing I can blame on him, and that we did it together. But I was in a lot of draft meetings with Coach Reid, and I remember one where he said, when I asked his evaluation, I said, well, Coach, what do you think about this guy? And he said, yeah, I think this guy stays healthy. He's going to the Hall of Fame. And I went, what did you just say? Yeah. And it was about an inside linebacker. And the guy he talked about, going to the Hall of Fame. So I think that he's
laying in the weeds on that one
self-deprecating like usual, Coach Reid. But I think as the game changes and as you look at that position, and a lot of those guys are moving positions. The bigger guys are coming up and they're playing edge. They're edge rushers. The guys who are a little bit smaller are moving back and they're playing safety. It's harder to find those guys as well.
Right.
I mean, there's Howie admitting his kryptonite, the position he struggles with the most evaluating in the draft is linebacker. So it adds to why I need Baun. Howie doesn't trust himself to go draft a linebacker to year one replace him. 215-592-9494. Could the Eagles survive next year without Zack Baun? And when I say survive, and when I use the word need, essential, I'm talking about at the level of winning a Super Bowl again. I don't think so. I mean, Zack Baun isn't going to be the difference between 15 wins or 14 wins and 5, obviously. But is he the difference between the number one defense and maybe falling back to the pack? I think so. I mean, he was first team All-Pro. He had 151 tackles. He had 3.5 sacks. That interception in the Super Bowl was part of what he did. I think he forced a turnover in every playoff game.
No, he's a baller.
He is a baller, and this might be the start of him being a baller for years. 215-592-9494. Kyle, where do you come down? Can the Eagles survive without Zack Baun?
Yeah, so I noticed this thing that Eagles fans do, and what you do in Philadelphia all the time.
Coping?
Whenever the Eagles have success. It's coping. That's a word for it. But it's this idea that we're invincible.
Oh, yeah.
After we do something one time and we have success with it, then all of a sudden we're infallible, and we can never do it wrong. Like we won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, and then all of a sudden, we'll be right back next year. We did it with a backup quarterback, and we do this all the time. After 2022, we did it. We'll be right back next year. Now, granted, we went back 2 years later, but I just think banking on lightning striking twice, that's not a path that I want to go down. We have a sure thing that's right here that was an all-pro defensive player of the year candidate. He's here. Don't let this guy go. I would much rather just re-sign him than bank on doing it again next season. And by the way, I understand Vic Fangio is a great coach and all. Vic Fangio wasn't even the one that found Zack Baun. He said Howie Roseman brought him to him, and Vic Fangio had an idea for how to use him. Now, that's great and all, but Howie, who just said that his weakness is finding inside linebackers, am I going to trust that he's going to do that again? Nakobe Dean is probably not going to be here to start the season next year. And then we're left with Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Oren Burks is gone.
And by the way, Oren Burks is a free agent too.
Correct,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
That's what I mean. So, and then, by the way, it doesn't seem like Milton Williams will be back. It doesn't seem like Sweat will be back. It's just too much to lose Zack Baun. If we lose Zack Baun, I think we're in serious trouble next year.
Yeah, you got to learn how to let go, dog. This is the NFL in a nutshell, especially off a team that won the Super Bowl. These things happen. Howie told you yesterday that this was going to happen.
Well, screw that. But the Super Bowl thing to me doesn't jive. Like I'm now focused on next year and what they did last year. Look, I mean, you know how I am about history. It means nothing for next year. We could suck next year. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Well, you know how I am for history.
That can happen if Zack Baun is here, though.
No, right, but don't you think your chances are better?
I'm not
if
arguing.
Zack Baun's here.
Now, I'm not arguing that Zack Baun makes this defense better. My argument is that we will be okay if he's not here. Like, that's the thing, because I feel like I said, again, opportunity and personnel, he benefited tremendously from both of those. You don't think they tried to play him at a linebacker, off-ball linebacker when he was in New Orleans? He couldn't get on the field.
Well, right. And I know that comes down to the coaching thing, and Vic Fangio did a great job with Zack Baun. But, like, I think we're now underestimating just how lucky we were this came together with Zack Baun.
Yeah, and he wasn't just good, he was great.
Right.
You mentioned the history thing. Well, I like history, and I use it all the time. Well, how about 2 years ago? They let T.J. Edwards go as soon as the Super Bowl was over. And T.J., I like T.J., but he didn't play at the highest level that Baun played at. They let him go to the Bears, and the next year, we got cooked. And he
played decent, if I'm not mistaken, for the Bears.
T.J.,
he played decent for the Bears.
But without him, the next year, any coach that had a brain, like I just remember that 49ers game when Shanahan realized that how weak we were at linebacker.
We had the worst linebacking group in the league.
And we couldn't stop anyone, even with Jalen Carter, even with Hassan Reddick, even with Darius Slay. Like, we still had some good players on the defense, but that area got exposed. And Hugh, maybe Fangio could find another one. I don't want to find out. I
get what you're saying, but for me to think that this team, like, he's the biggest cog in the wheel. He's a part of the chain. He's not the biggest cog, in my opinion. He's an important cog, but Jalen Carter, that front four are the ones. Jalen Carter's the one that makes that defense go. So Jalen Carter makes it easier for those linebackers to do what they do.
I agree.
He's that guy.
I agree, but he might be second.
But
Baun, might be second.
Let me put and I'm gonna say this, and please don't nobody take it the wrong way. Because he's a Hall of Famer.
Take it the wrong way.
He's a Hall of Famer, and he was a dominant player. But Ray Lewis benefited from having Sam Adams and Tony Siragusa tremendously in front of him. That allowed his natural ability to even be more than what it was. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Zack Baun, because they had those two big D tackles in front of them, it allowed him to play easier. It allowed him to play linebacker easier.
I'm with you.
It made it easier for him to do what he does.
I get that. I'm sure, of course. I'd want to run it back though, and I'm willing to overpay him to bring him back.